This video contains subject matter that may be disturbing to some viewers. This is a trigger warning. Gay people who have, or know people who have, suffered through conversion therapy. What's your story? My husband went to a camp that was meant to cure LGBT teens. My husband says that they would wake the kids up in the morning and each teen would have a one-on-one session with the leader. He would try to make them avoid their temptation during the session. He would show them nude photos of men-women. Some of it was of gay sex. They would watch group videos on the dangers of being gay and the risk factor associated with it, such as contracting HIV, not being able to have children, being kicked out of your house, not having your church accept you. They would have their graduates of the camp come in and talk about avoiding temptation and how you can learn to live the way that God intended. They also had the teens walk out in the community with signs that said, "I am gay. Help me avoid temptation." It was part of the process because you apparently need the community support in order to help you become straight. My husband didn't complete the program and was kicked out of his house by his parents. Fortunately, he had an aunt that was more than willing to allow him to live with her family. It worked out well in the end, but as far as my husband knows, the camp is still ongoing. They just opened it to more kids with different issues, but LGBT youth still attend. It is pretty sad, honestly. And we do in fact have children and neither of us spontaneously contracted HIV, so I hope they update that video. They would watch group videos on the dangers of being gay and the risk factor associated with it, such as contracting HIV, not being able to have children, being kicked out of your house, not having your church accept you. We have to punish and ostracize you for being gay, otherwise you might be punished and ostracized for being gay. I am writing on mobile, so please be understanding. I was in the 8th grade when I first expressed my feelings. I told one friend and within a week's time the whole school knew. This was about 5 weeks before the end of the school year. I was able to keep it secret from my family until the last couple of weeks. To say my family reacted poorly is a massive understatement. They pulled me from my classes and had me secluded in the principal's office for the remainder of the year. I still remember that we received our gateway scores, standardized tests to advance to high school. I was allowed to leave for a few minutes to take a project to a teacher. During this moment my math teacher, who had been supportive, saw me and excitedly told me I had received the 3rd best math score in the state. All I could say was thank you. She smiled sadly and patted my shoulder. I returned to the principal's office. School finished up and my family became dangerous. They would constantly harass me, screaming at me for hours about how my friends made me do this, asking me whom I had sex with. For the record, I was a virgin. There was one particularly bad experience where we went to a grocery store and my brother started pelting me with apples. I told my parents and they said that's what fruits get. That continued for a good 3 weeks. One day I came downstairs and they had a deacon sitting with them in the living room. I didn't know it at the time, but apparently several of the parents in the church we attend and had children who also came out recently. The church had decided to take it upon themselves to see that we were educating in the Lord's desire for our life. We sat down and talked for about an hour before I was taken and placed in the car with the deacon. We drove in silence to the church and I was led into the gymnasium. There were about 5 of us in the gym when a member of the congregation came out and explained to us that we were going to spend the remainder of the summer fixing this problem. They removed our clothes and gave us gym shorts and plain white shirts. Then we began exercising. We were told to run laps. So we ran laps. I was not particularly, shall we say, fit. This was not something that worked well with running laps. I didn't make it 20 minutes before I was throwing up. They pulled my head out of the trash can and pushed me back on the court. Then they made me run some more. Over and over and over again. Until we were crying and crawling around in exhausted, torn down states. Eventually the deacon came in and threw a blanket at each of us and said to find a spot and go to sleep. I don't know how long I slept, but not much. I was awakened by a huge bodybuilder looking guy, another member of our church, grabbing my arm and forcing me into a room. They shone a bright light into my eyes and started screaming questions at me. How do you know you're queer? You ever took one up the butt, son? You ready for hell, boy? before I could give them an answer they'd yell something else at me. In the off chance I got a word out they'd throw something at me so that it would just miss me. They would tell me about gay pedophiles ripping children apart then selling them off. How all gays were drug addicts and infected with HIV. How when you have anal sex you receive anal trauma so severe you can never poo again, requiring the use of a coal stain bag. They'd shout Bible verses at me then shoehorn it into the evils of being gay. After that it was more exercise. Then they would sit us down and have us explain to one another why we wanted to get raped, AIDS, or anything else as they would tell us to explain to one another. Sometimes one of the members of the church would come in and explain how they had homosexual urges as children and through Jesus they had overcome their homosexual urges. Most everything settled into a routine of exercise, interrogation, exercises, weird group lessons, exercises, show us really fucked up pictures of extreme sex, exercises until you passed out. There wasn't any order of when they would feed us. Mostly I think it was when they thought they had to. I remember we were always hungry. They would follow us into the bathroom and make us go in front of them. Usually asking awful questions like so I guess you like pooping. I found that to be really weird, something about having something in your butt I guess. Anyway this went on for weeks. Our families would visit every so often to monitor our progress. I can still see the disappointment in my mother's eyes. So at the end they signed this mock diploma and we graduated in this weird commitment ceremony of being straight. We had to join the church as well. I went back home really skinny and really depressed. I don't think I talked to anyone for a week. My family placed me on lockdown for about 2 years after that. I was homeschooled, and in 2 years I left the house like 15 or so times. They monitored everything I did, controlled what I watched, read, and did. Eventually things returned to normal and life went on. I still live at home and in my family we do not talk about that time period. On the rare occasion it's brought up it's ignored as if nothing ever happened. The church absolutely denies everything that happened. Anyway that's kinda a Cliff Notes version since I'm on mobile. Frig that. Press charges for that heinous abuse you were given. If you still have that diploma turn it over as evidence immediately. Something I learned. The blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb. Bonds you form by choice are stronger than those with your false family. The problem with things like conversion therapy, even if there is a shred of legitimacy, your family is supposed to be there for you no matter what. When someone comes out early onto their parents, if they receive anything but positive acceptance that trust is broken and it's pretty freaking tough to repair that kind of trust. If anyone wants to know more about this stuff they really need to read Boy Erased by Gerard Conley. Honestly this book should be required reading in schools. The best example I can offer is this. A gay tuba player I know went through conversion therapy. He said, it was like being told he should play the violin instead of the tuba. He tried it. Didn't work. Now he's happily married to his gay partner, and proud of it. But does he still play the tuba? It messed me up good. I was 16 when I told my mother I was in love with my friend. She said, well I don't think that makes you gay. After a month of that denial, she and that same friend wanted me to go to Love in Action. Seriously, I've never heard a bigger misnomer in my goddamn life. Met with a counselor weekly, and I was given books and middle school style homework, and PC CDs with testimonials from ex-gays around the world. Basically I was told I did not have a good relationship with my dad, and that caused me to seek out relationships with males. Since I hadn't been abused by anyone, yet, or raped, yet. Yeah I know, life's been kinda rough on me, but wait there's more, and a few other random things that makes no sense at all. There were actually a lot of gays around me growing up but the vast majority were pretending to be straight and failing miserably. Basically the whole ordeal convinced me that God hated me so I tried to kill myself. Rather than going from the ER to a mental health facility, I went to church camp for a week where I shared my testimonial and felt all was well. Luckily someone in my family was smart enough to send me to a general practitioner who put me on Zoloft, which didn't work, and lectured me for an hour on why suicide is bad. In college I came out, but still considered myself a Christian. Stopped taking Zoloft when I discovered weed. cause Zoloft made me a zombie and I felt nothing all the time. Finally, after years of bullshit, a kind Canadian challenged my beliefs, so I started reading the Bible from the beginning with fresh educated adult eyes. I couldn't make it all the way through Genesis without being disgusted with myself and my gullibility. More bullshit happened. Then just last year, I finally got really good help after a second suicide attempt. Now I'm on good medication, seeing a proper shrink for my major depressive disorder and general anxiety disorder, and have a job I've always wanted, and I'm in love with someone who loves me back. So I'm the happiest liberal son of a bitch in America right now. I honestly never believed it until right now, but it really does get better. I teach in a university in a psychology department, and I know a couple of my older colleagues used to do gay conversion therapy. The thing is, back in the day, this was mainstream therapy. Many men voluntarily entered therapy to cure themselves. When say voluntarily, I know that they were bowing to pressure to maintain a socially normative behavior, so there was an element of coercion involved. Nonetheless, they admitted themselves and paid for their own therapies. They would try to counter-condition sexual urges to homosexual stimuli using electric shocks. They would measure small changes in penile erections to verify the loss of prepotent arousal while doing so. These therapies were incredibly unsuccessful. Edit, I should add that my colleagues, who are open and liberal-minded professionals, completely regret they ever participated in these therapies, and are very glad that homosexuality has been depathologized. Oh hey, an AskReddit I can participate in. Well, it was my senior year of high school when everything happened. I knew I was bi ever since I was 13. My senior year of high school, I finally came to the realization that I was 100% gay. It sucked, because I wanted to marry a woman and be normal. I was talking to a really cute, smart, funny guy from a different school. It was just a city over, so about 10 minutes away. My parents had been suspicious for years, so they decided to read my texts, and saw the conversations we had with each other. They confronted me about it when I got home from work one night, and they basically told me I was going to hell. A couple weeks later, they took me to Christian counseling, and I thought it was total bullshit, and I even told the counselor that. After my third visit, I decided to try and change so I wouldn't go to hell, so I told her that and prayed, and that was that. Trying to change who I was inside only lasted a couple months. I realized I was a flaming gay boy, and that's how I'm gonna be until the day I die. Fast forward to today, they still don't have proof that I'm gay, but they have their suspicions. They constantly question where I'm at, ask me if I'd ever go back to that lifestyle, etc. It's hard to even date anyone at all right now because of how overprotective they've become over the years ever since they found out I was gay at one point. I graduate college in a year and a half, and then I'm getting out of here. Don't ever let anyone try and tell you that you can't love who you want to. If you ever even try to make yourself believe that, you'll never truly be happy. Now that I've accepted who I am, I'm truly happy and I wouldn't change a thing. Flame on, ladies and gents. Thank you for bearing through these posts. I know they are difficult to listen to. Nobody should have to go through any of this. If you're in a situation where you feel at risk, please call your local crisis line. The numbers for Kids Help Phone and the crisis text line will be on screen if you need somebody to talk to. You aren't alone. You are loved. You matter. This has been okpj, and please take care and be kind to each other.